The much ridiculed sculpture of the Portugal captain Cristiano Ronaldo in his hometown of Madeira has been replaced. The statue was unveiled just last year at the airport on Ronaldo's home island, which is incidentally named after the five-time World Player of the Year himself. But it was universally panned because it didn't bear much of a resemblance to the national team captain who led Portugal to its first major international honour at the 2016 European Championships. There was an online petition to have the statue removed, and the airport authorities revealed that this has been done without any hype on the day that Ronaldo scored a hat-trick in Portugal's opening World Cup game against Spain. Achilles, the famous cat of St. Petersburg, has predicted that Russia will snatch victory from Egypt in their second group match, which will be held later tonight. Under the shadow of the powerful lion statue in Russia's Hermitage Museum, Achilles pounced on the bowl nearest the Russian flag. Delighted museum workers watched on as the cat devoured the Russian bowl, but were taken by surprise when the psychic cat soon moved on to the Egyptian bowl. Now, despite Achilles wanting a second taste of Egypt's offering, organizers declared Russia to be the cat's overall pick. And it's not just Achilles, even a tiger in Krasnoyarsk believes that Russia will win the match against Egypt. A white Bengal tiger sniffing and pawing at red and green packages decorated with the flags of Russia and Egypt swiped the Russian one to the ground first and pulled the flag off, declaring Russia the winner. Remember, Russia faces Egypt in their second match in St. Petersburg. That's tonight, and follows up after a resounding 5-0 victory over the Saudis in the first match. That was, of course, the tournament opener. And, of course, where there is football, there have to be fans. And Polish supporters invaded Moscow's Red Square, shouting and cheering ahead of their World Cup Group H showdown with Senegal. Fans jumped up and down in the Red Square, just steps away from the Kremlin and St. Basil's Cathedral, pumping themselves up before the match. Senegal reached the 2002 quarters final and stunned defending champions France in their opening game. These supporters are confident that they can steal a win this year as well. Now, the euphoria of Mexico's massive win over world champions Germany has soured a bit, with FIFA opening a disciplinary action investigation against Mexican fans. FIFA is looking into alleged homophobic chants that were directed toward the German goalkeeper Manuel Neuer during that game. Mexico's Football Federation has been fined 9 times during the qualifying campaign for similar chants by fans and has repeatedly asked supporters to refrain from using these slurs. Now, the fans themselves say that they haven't used anything which is homophobic or has homophobic connotations. They say it's a matter of cultural interpretation. Every World Cup match has 3 anti-discriminatory officers in the stands to monitor supporter behavior. Saudi Arabia's national football team landed safely in Rostov-on-Don, Russia, after one of the engines on the plane carrying the players to a World Cup match appeared to catch fire. A spokesperson for the airline Rossiya denied that a fire had taken place and said that the fault was developed due to a bird strike. The team were traveling on a Rossiya Airbus A319 from St. Petersburg to Rostov-on-Don. As confirmed by a Rossiya airline spokesperson, the plane apparently suffered a technical fault with one of its engines, with a bird getting caught seen as the preliminary cause. The spokesperson also clarified that reports of a fire in one of the engines was incorrect. Video shared on social media had showed an aircraft that posters on it identifying it as the Saudi team's plane with its wing on fire while it was in the air. The footage, which Reuters was unable to verify independently, was shared by the civil aviation monitoring website airlive.net. It said that the fire broke out on the approach to the Rostov airport. Meanwhile, the Saudi Federation released photographs of the players smiling and looking calm as they boarded a bus for the hotel that they're staying at in central Rostov. The team are making their first appearance at the World Cup since 2006. They suffered their biggest defeat at the tournament so far when they were thrashed 5-0 by the host Russia in the opening game in Moscow last Thursday. Uganda's sports betting business is booming by the day. As the World Cup gets underway, big games will also mean new chances to make money in the country's fast-growing sports betting business. Here's more.
Football and betting is an addictive combination in Uganda. In just a few years, betting shops have become a feature of cities, towns and villages across the country, with more and more willing to have a flutter.
I win, I lose, I win, I lose. So I don't know exactly if they have eaten me or I've eaten them. I still don't know exactly, but I think I've eaten them.
In Kampala, there are hundreds of betting shops and people are increasingly gambling online, thanks to the ubiquity of smartphones that enable web and app-based bets. In 2016, the government established a national gaming board in an attempt to regulate the exploding industry.
We know very well that most of the youth love sports, especially the male youth. They love football. So they all place bets on their favorite teams, especially out of the Premiership. Now, because they've done that a lot, they have even moved to other unknown leagues, like the Chinese league, not even only the first division, but they play on the second and the third.
The growth of the industry is also creating new jobs. Ivan Kalenzi runs his sports betting consultancy from his sports clothes shop in one of the malls. He has clients from all over the world, but has seen many gamble their lives away.
For the last 5 years, I've been meeting people with so many different problems, fees, people are losing houses because of gambling, people are losing out on families because of gambling, people are in too much debts because of gambling. So there are many problems associated with gambling.
Innocent has been gambling for 6 years, but thinks he will eventually stop.
I don't advise family people, actually people who are having family, who are married, to do this betting all the time, because sometimes it takes you, but for me, I'm still not married. The day when I get married, I might stop.
For many others, it may not be so easy, and with Uganda's high unemployment rate, the lure of an easy win risks dragging more into dangerous debt.
Right, and it's just been about 6 days since the 2018 World Cup. We're going to be taking you through some of the best goals. But before we do that, the Moldovan capital of Saransk has readied itself to host the World Cup match between, or in fact, it has already hosted the match between Colombia and Japan. Japan, remember, thrashed Colombia 1-0. The local football game, which is dubbed Lapot ball, is also gaining popularity. In Russian, the word means the traditional shoes made of wine, which Moldovians used to used to wear back in ancient times. Colombian fans were seen trying to get their hand at the game as well. The small Lapot ball pitch, located at an open-air ethnographic Moldovan museum in the very heart of Saransk, has turned into one of the main tourist attractions for football-mad fans making their way into Russia. Now, these handmade bass shoes are one of the main attractions of the sport. That's made using the inner part of the vine plant, while the bark itself serves as a foundation for the football. The ball used in Moldovan soccer is way heavier than the ones that are usually used. Two months ago, authorities shut down a female fitness center in Riyadh after a promotional video showed a woman in gym clothes. That very same month, authorities apologized for a promotional video showing scantily clad female wrestlers. And Khatib's removal doesn't augur well for what happens next week. Remember, June 24th is when Saudi women will be allowed to drive cars for the very first time in decades. This comes after the government allowed mixed-gender concerts and reopened cinemas. The downside to all of this is that 9 women activists, some of whom have been long-time advocates of women's rights, stay behind bars. They've been branded as traitors, accused of spying for Qatar, which is currently locked in a feud with Saudi Arabia. Now, rights groups say that the government doesn't want any push for change from below. Rather, they should fall in line with the government. It reflects the fact that reforms may be limited in scope. Over and above, they must observe a dress code which is a long cloak or an abaya and a headscarf. They can't compete in sports and parks, and many public places are still gender segregated. The Crown Prince, though, wants to modernize his country, but this may not include giving more rights to his people, rights that may be used to question his very control over the country and his manner of running it. And Saudi Arabia has its date with destiny on June 24th, when the ban on women driving is finally lifted. And many women want to make sure that they're all set for the big day. Take a look.
Women in Saudi Arabia will finally get a chance to drive themselves to where they need to be, rather than wait for taxis or chauffeurs. The date they've marked on their calendars is June 24th, when they can officially get behind the wheel, ending a decades-long driving ban. But it's no mean task, and one company is on hand to help them prepare for the road ahead. State-run oil firm Aramco is offering its female employees and their families the opportunity to take classes at its driving academy. Amira Abdul Gader is one of the 200 women taking up this offer.
On June 24, I would like to go to my mother's house and take her on a ride. This is my first plan, actually, and I would like really to enjoy it with my mother, just me and my mother without anyone.
While some women are focusing on honing their driving skills, others are figuring out which car to buy.
I haven't put a lot of thought into my dream car growing up. I've always seen myself in a convertible car, but with this weather it's not so convenient. So I'll do my research. I'm planning to go soon to the dealership to do my research and pick the right car for me.
The lifting of the driving ban is only one of the many sweeping social changes heralded by Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. His detractors say it's too much too soon. But for the women readying for their first shot at driving without fear, it's all background noise. Bureau Report, WION.
Over to the United States, where President Donald Trump is unrelenting. He stays firm on his decision, saying that he will not allow the United States to become a migrant camp. His remarks come as his administration tries to defend the controversial practice of separating migrant children from their parents at the US-Mexico border. The White House has also raised eyebrows by suggesting that a majority of the children in detention cross the border with strangers and not their parents. However, reports suggest that the zero-tolerance enforcement policy has resulted in the separation of nearly 2,000 children from their parents in the last 6 weeks alone. These children are being kept in U.S. detention centers after being taken away from their parents. Meanwhile, the United Nations has asked the U.S. to treat migrants with dignity.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility. Won't be. You look at what's happening in Europe, you look at what's happening in other places. We can't allow that to happen to the United States, not on my watch.
Vast majority of children who are in the care of HHS right now, 10,000 of the 12,000, were sent here alone by their parents. That's when they were separated. So somehow we've conflated everything, but there's two separate issues. 10,000 of those currently in custody were sent by their parents with strangers to undertake a completely dangerous and deadly travel alone.
On the issue of migrants and refugee children, as a matter of principle, the Secretary General believes that refugee and migrants should always be treated with dignity and with respect, and in accordance with existing international laws. Children must not be traumatized by being separated from their parents. Family unity must be preserved.
In the meantime, politicians and advocates have gathered at the Mexican border to visit U.S. immigration detention centers and turn up the pressure on the Trump administration. Church groups and human rights advocates have also sharply criticized the policy as inhumane. Staying with that story, but more specifically to Texas and its border with Mexico, where thousands of children are separated from their families as they seek asylum in the United States. They're escaping the dark horrors of life in their home countries, traveling several miles in harsh conditions, packing their entire lives into small boxes with their children in tow. Thousands of families arrive at the U.S. border illegally every single day, hoping for a better life. But while parents are arrested for breaking the law, the children are crammed into dingy detention homes. They're scared, they are alone. And this is their story.
A picture is worth 1,000 words, they say. And this image says it all. A 2-year-old Honduran asylum seeker cries as her mother is searched and detained near the United States-Mexico border. And she's just one of the thousands of children who are separated from their parents every single day. Migrants crossing into America are separated from their children, arrested and prosecuted, some even deported to where they came from. And the children are tagged unaccompanied minors. What's worse is that they are pushed into this dark, large facility, kept in these cages with metal fencing, with large foil sheets as blankets. A so-called tent city was created in Texas to house these minors. But these too were nothing more than a detention center. And if this wasn't enough, US patrol agents are adding insult to injury. In a foreign land, terrified and alone, these children are soon reduced to a mere statistic. But while thousands of families are separated, some are lucky. Like this Honduran immigrant who was released and reunited with his 17-year-old in just a few days after they entered the United States.
It was hard, the hardest day for me. I felt like I was losing my son. That's what I thought. I was going to lose my son.
In May this year, United States President Donald Trump announced the family separation policy. It was a part of his zero-tolerance crackdown on illegal immigrants. And since then, 2,000 children have been separated from their families. 2,000 children in just about 6 weeks. And that's a figure quoted by the United States government. In reality, that number could be far bigger. They flee their home countries hoping for a new life, a new beginning. They travel thousands of miles through dangerous conditions and they set foot on US soil, only to find a dead end. Bureau Report, WION.
On that note, we're wrapping up Fine Print. Thanks for joining us here on the broadcast. Lots more on the other side of the short break though. See you then.